For years, the Timberwolves have had the blueprint of a contender. They made back-to-back trips to the Western Conference Finals, weathered injuries, major roster changes, and remained one of the NBA's best teams. But despite the success, they always felt a piece away. The formula was there, it just came with a hard ceiling. Now they're betting on LaMelo Ball to change that. So what does this actually mean for the Wolves moving forward? Does the fit make any sense? And does this move finally give them what they've been missing in pursuit of a championship? In today's video brought to you by Prize Picks, we're going to break down everything, starting with the fact that adding a player like LaMelo to your roster completely changes your offensive philosophy. He plays fast. Anytime he grabs a rebound or sees an opportunity to push after a made shot, he's looking to create transition offense. And it's hard to overstate just how valuable that can be. On average, teams scored about 1.26 points per transition possession last season. In the half court, they scored just 0.98. Over the course of 100 plays, transition offense is worth almost 30 more points. The reason I bring this up is because finding these high-value plays hasn't really been a focus for the Wolves. Earlier in Ant's career, they played a bit faster, ranking in the top 10 in transition volume twice. But during their two deep playoff runs, they were one of the slowest teams in basketball. Everything came in the half court, until last year when they got back to about average with guys like Ayo Dosunmu, Bones Highland, and Jaden McDaniels hunting for opportunities to attack in the open floor. If they continue to lean into the speed, length, and athleticism of their roster after adding LaMelo, they could mold themselves into one of the game's best transition offenses. That would take some serious buy-in from Ant though. I've said for years that the next big leap for Ant is playing with more pace. He's one of the fastest players in the league. He's incredibly strong, has elite stride work. In general, he's just a nightmarish downhill presence. Not to mention that he can streak alongside ball handlers as an above-the-rim finishing threat or space to the three-point line and pull up for transition jumpers. From a pure talent perspective, you'd think that he'd be an elite scorer in the open floor. And he is, at least efficiency-wise. Last season, he scored 1.29 points per play in transition, good for the 82nd percentile among all players. The problem is that he picks his spots. Part of the reason why they were such a slow offense is that Ant prefers to play slow. And while that helps his rhythm, it prevents the Wolves from getting some of those hyper-efficient possessions. Less than 15% of Ant's offense came in transition last year. That's in the 25th percentile among all players. The biggest question I have regarding his fit with LaMelo is whether or not he'll buy into a faster-paced offense, and if he even has the conditioning to do so. If he does, and Minnesota makes that a big point of emphasis, not only will he get some of the easiest buckets of his life, the entire team will thrive in the open floor, as they've got a pretty nice surplus of athletic wings who can attack with the ball or play off of LaMelo. As for the half court, LaMelo provides a bit of that pure point guard presence they've been missing, but in his own unique way. His game is very ball screen dominant. That could mean a spread pick and roll setup with the big. It could mean using a screen from a guard to get a switch or turn the corner. In either scenario, he's hunting for pull-up threes. Due to his unorthodox shooting form, he can get the shot off in pretty much any way the mind can possibly conjure up, and he can do so very quickly, allowing him to capitalize on tiny windows of space. You could make the argument that he took more difficult off-the-dribble threes than any player in basketball last season, yet he still made about 37% of them. That's extremely efficient offense, and it forces defenses to get really aggressive with how they cover him. In ball screen situations, he's a guy who gets two on the ball pretty consistently, which opens up his best skill, his passing. Over the years, his controversial style of play and flair had people questioning his feel for the game or general decision making. The reality is that he sees everything before it happens, knows how to read defenses, and he's always quick to get off the ball immediately, which puts his teammates in position to attack a rotating defense. It's very Tyrese Halliburton-esque, where he'll create an advantage and immediately find a crack in the defense, which he's able to do because he can make any type of pass. For a guy like Gobert, that's a big deal. LaMelo should be able to put the ball where he wants it, find him above the rim on lobs, and make life a whole lot easier for him as a roller. But you can even mix in some guard-to-guard screening action, like what the Hornets were doing last year, using guys like Dosunmu, McDaniels, or even Ant as screeners to get two on LaMelo and create space for them to drive into. As long as LaMelo's the one starting possessions, everything should be predicated on creating situations where he's a threat to turn the corner. That way, he can access the pull-up three, or get downhill and make plays for his teammates from the paint. With Gobert in the mix, teams will probably look to trap LaMelo and funnel the ball to Rudy in the middle. And while that sounds like a solution, all that does is open up the possibility for Ant to attack a rotating defense, which could very easily turn into one of the most dangerous weapons in basketball. Ant's off-ball game hasn't really been tapped into. For the first time in his career, he'll be playing alongside one of the best playmakers in the sport. We're talking about a guy with the most explosive first step in the league, somebody who can absolutely torch closeouts, while actively demanding them because over the past 3 seasons, he's made 43% of his catch-and-shoot threes. Think about defenses putting 2 on the ball, then being forced to recover while he catches the ball with an advantage. Beyond just Ant, they've done a good job of building this roster out with guys who have legitimate ball skills. It feels like nobody in their rotation, outside of Rudy, is limited in off-the-catch situations. And believe me, LaMelo will create those opportunities. Part of what makes him such a unique player, though, is that he's just as capable without the ball. But before we get into that, I want to take a moment to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. If you know you can play responsibly and you have the means to do so, PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy app. So if you're looking for a place to get in on action this summer, use code HMA and get started. We're a few days away from the Commissioner's Cup Finals match between 2 of the WNBA's best teams. For the Liberty, I like Breanna Stewart. Historically, she's played the Aces really well and they've got her at 24.5 PRAs. That's a line I think she can crush. On the other side, I'm looking at Jackie Young's points. She's had a few big nights in a row, including 19 against New York. I've got her scoring 17 this time around. And it's that easy. Find the stat you want, pick more or less, and you've got your lineup. If you sign up for PrizePicks with code HMA and play $5, you get $50 in lineups instantly. So download the app to get started and let me hear your picks down in the comments. Earlier, I talked about the speed of LaMelo's decision-making and his passing. Those are extremely valuable off-ball skills. But it's the shooting that really moves the needle, because he'll space well behind the three-point line and defenses actually have to guard him. This is a big deal, because in tight situations against higher-level playoff defenses, they'll probably have to turn to Ant as their lead ball handler. He just poses a much greater on-ball scoring threat, especially inside the arc. In a similar vein, he's one of the game's best pull-up three-point shooters. This past season, he made about 35% of them, which also came on a tough, versatile diet of shots. The difference is that he pairs it with world-class slashing, and that combination forces defenses to go to some pretty extreme coverages. LaMelo serves as an outlet for beating those coverages. All that's to say, this might actually be the best offensive backcourt in basketball. If not, they're near the top. They benefit each other in every possible way and help shore up each other's weaknesses. For example, LaMelo lacks the two-point scoring punch to be relied on as a #1 option in a playoff setting. Ant is a proven elite playoff scorer. He lacks the playmaking versatility and decision-making to counter certain defenses or play point guard full-time. LaMelo's a proven elite passer who just led an elite offense. The league's average offensive rating last year was 116. The Hornets during LaMelo's minutes were up at 125. That was the highest mark of any player not on the Nuggets, who had the #1 offense by a landslide. With LaMelo off the court though, they plummeted to 113. They weren't even an average offense. And that's a function of his ability to impact so many different areas. Because he can dominate the ball and carry a large decision-making load, he limits team turnovers. He does so without stalling the offense. He's quick to get off the ball and he can be just as effective without it, so he unlocks a lot more movement and extra passing. Between his own high-level shooting and the way he gets shooters open, his teams get better, higher quality looks from 3. But he also creates a ton of space and is a top-tier interior passer, so his teams also get better, higher quality looks at the rim. Not to mention the pace. By speeding the game up and being an elite open floor playmaker, his teams get the easiest shots in basketball. Basically, what I'm getting at is no matter who you put next to him, they're gonna feel some sort of boost. And that's reflected in Charlotte's past season. There were 9 players who played at least 250 minutes with LaMelo on the court. The only one who wasn't more efficient during that time was Ryan Kalkbrenner. Everybody else saw a huge increase to their scoring production, with some guys getting up to 10% more efficient. We're talking slashers, shooters, play finishers, who completely transformed by just simply sharing the floor with an elite offensive engine. I'm expecting a similar influence in Minnesota. Ant and Jaden should have the most efficient scoring seasons of their careers. Rudy should improve. Terrence Shannon off the bench has a lot more utility. I also think he'll be huge for the development of Yohan Beringer. The fit is seamless. They've significantly pushed both their offensive floor and ceiling with this move, and have an opportunity to emerge as a top 5 offense for the first time during the Anthony Edwards era. And maybe the most important part is that they did so without sacrificing their defensive infrastructure. When I first got the news that LaMelo was headed to Minnesota, I was basically certain that they had to include Rudy Gobert. To keep him as a defensive anchor while getting such a boost to the offense, that's what makes this move so special to me. Over the past decade, we've seen him go on one of the greatest runs of defensive floor raising, and it's not like he'll be a one-man show out there. By distributing some of the offensive load to LaMelo, I think we might see the best version of Ant defensively. They've still got Jaden McDaniels as well, an elite point of attack defender and versatile wing who can play just about any role. As far as LaMelo's fit goes, defensively, we haven't seen him in a true playoff setting yet, but I'd imagine teams look to put him in every possible action. He's not strong physically and isn't the most agile, so in one-on-one situations, he can't really contain the ball. However, we saw some serious buy-in from him last year. He played within the system, made his rotations, executed different coverages to avoid getting switched onto stars, and used his length to make plays on the ball. I think as long as the Wolves insulate him with a wide range of capable defenders and athletes, he should be able to, at the very least, serve as a cog in the system. I'm sure they'll put him in lineups with Jalen Clark, a genuinely great point of attack defender, or Kyle Anderson, a versatile do-it-all forward. But I want to pause on Kyle for a sec, because he's quite literally the only power forward on this roster. I do really worry about the size outside of Rudy on both ends when it comes to matching playoff physicality. By losing both Randall and Naz Reid, they've lost a ridiculous amount of mass. And whether or not they'll be able to get to the level of a true contender will come down to how they fill out the roster on the margins. I think their areas of need are guys who can force turnovers, size and versatility at the 4, and maybe a little bit more shooting in the absence of Dante DiVincenzo. Does that mean another trade? Maybe a free agent signing? Or will they go into the season and wait to see what happens? Only time will tell, but I know one thing for sure. They've got something special with this core. I'm confident saying that this is the best offense the Wolves have had since drafting Ant, and they've still got a lot to like defensively. With this move, Minnesota has gotten themselves one step closer to competing for a championship.